Yes, thank you. So, welcome to this session about Bring Your Own BI, BYOB. So, I'm Yannick Béot. I'm a solution engineer at Cellpoint for 3 years now. Before that, I was working in consulting companies around IM topics, and from pre-sales to support, so anything in the project. So today we are going to be talking about BI. So it's true that Identity Security Cloud is an open platform. So we have this whole developer days to prove that. We have well-documented API to access the data. And we do have data within Identity Security Cloud. We have a lot of data about visibility, so who has access to what. So for that we have identities, we have accounts, we have entitlements. We also have data related to AI, so either detected outliers, role mining and role propositions. We may have recommendations about access requests or within certifications. And we also have historical data to get the states of identities and all the governance events around these identities. So, of course, as of today, the UI is already presented the data. So you have various pages for that. So the access history will present you the historical data. IIC will present some of this data. The role discovery pages are there to present you proposed roles and stuff like that. But BI intelligence consists of strategies and technologies used by enterprise to analyze the data. And the idea is to get insights from this data and to be able to manage this business information. So, as Cellpoint is already providing some analytics capabilities. So, as I said, you have today Access Intelligence Center, which allows you to have data visualizations with some out-of-the-box dashboards. So you can review the state of your current organizations in terms of identities, number of identities, identities per department, or something like that. Or you may have also some historical data, so you may have some trends. So for instance, you can look over the number of access requests for the last days, the certification items for the last days, etc., etc. Access history is also there, obviously, to show you a timeline of the historical states of the event and allows you to compare two states, two dates of the same identity, so you can see the change over time. And we also have the Snowflake secure data sharing capability, which allow us to replicate our data to your own Snowflake instance. And as a lot of BI tools are supporting Snowflakes, you can directly use these Snowflakes as a storage, as an engine to run your dashboards and reports. And you can also manage there your own policies, so in terms of access, in terms of data retentions. So you can manage the data yourself under your own condition. So why talking today about a custom Power BI connector? So companies often make a choice about a BI tool, and based on some technical aspects or based on some license aspects, and this tool is used by the management, is used across the teams within the organization to share KPIs, to share insights you may have found in your business, in your management. And it's true that Microsoft Power BI is highly used among companies. We see it a lot. So it's a good candidate to work on this Power BI. Also, a nice nugget is Power BI desktop is actually free, so you can install it freely on your desktop, Windows desktop, and you can create your own dashboard, your own KPIs locally for free. Another aspect is it's fun, so it's perhaps an argument you may have heard from me. So I've never done some custom connector for Power BI before. So this is interesting to look into this, and also learning a new language. So the M language used by Power BI is also an interesting challenge. However, by using this approach, you won't have any out-of-the-box dashboard, data visualization like we have in AEC or in Access Story. And Power BI is not there to store historical data, so it's not a way to store and see some trends. It's just a way to collect the live data within ISC, for instance, so you can see the current states of your data, of the identities, the entitlements, etc., etc. So a couple of requirements. So obviously Power BI Desktop, so you can install it from the Microsoft Store, or you can install it as a standalone MSI. We will use Visual Studio Code as well, because there is 2 extensions that allows you to create a custom connector. So I've mentioned here. So it's related to Power Query actually. So once you have installed this, you can start creating your own project, your own custom connector. So I will show it to you right away. So here from VS Code, once you have installed the extension, you will have this Power Query extension. So let's open the command palette and look for the create extension project. So you will give it a name. So let's say Dave Days. And then it will look for a path where to store the files, so the path to a workspace. So I've created an empty folder beforehand. And it will create a bunch of files for you right away. So you will have the project files here, some standard icon for you to use, and some a query you can use here. So if the extension you installed will add this menu here, Power Query SDK, that is visible in the Explorer view. So you can, for instance, try to evaluate the current file. So by clicking here, Evaluate Current File, it will actually compile the whole project and run it. And here you have the results. Hello from Dave Days, no message. So here we are just trying to evaluate this Dave Days.content functions and show you the results. If we look into the Power Query file, we have this entry point here. So the DaveDays.content function, which takes an optional parameter, as you can imagine, message here, and then it will look if it's null or not, and concatenate strings and return as we have seen. So, for instance, we can right away put some string, some parameter, like I don't know, hello world, something like that. So I will save and run the current file. And so the output is automatically updated, as we can see. Okay. So here we are not using any authentication method. We are not using anything, but to connect to Identity Security Cloud, we need to set up some authentication. So that will be our next step. So we need to define the authentication method. So there are a few authentication methods built in Power BI. So here we have been using Anonymous because we don't authenticate. But I will use the username password method to collect the client ID and the client secret of the personal access token. So I can authenticate against ISC and call the API. So for that, I have to open the Power Query, and here we define the authentication method. So I will just comment out the authentication method and uncomment the username password. So here we are. It's it's configured to use the username password. Just do that. Okay, so once we have set up the authentication method, I will create a first function. So this function get access token will allow me to get an access token from ISC. So for that, I will so copy paste, not write it, can be pretty long. So I will create this new function. So the definition of function make me think of some arrow functions like in JavaScript or something like that. So you will have here a parameter URL, which will be the base URL of my tenant. Then I get the credentials, and I post with this web.contents magic method, I would say. So it will be used to actually make the HTTP query to this OAuth token endpoint, and from this response, I will pass it as a JSON and get the access_token attribute of a response into this access token variable that I'm returning from the function. So here I have again a function to get access token based on this URL. Then I will create another function. So for instance, to list the identities on my platform, right? So for that, I will use the beta/identities endpoint. So if we look into the documentation, so we have this endpoint, so the base URL of the API, and then /beta/identities. We have some query parameters to manage filtering and pagination and stuff like that. And in return, we have an array of objects with ID, name, alias, email address, and also the attributes here. So for each identity, you will have as a key value object all the attributes of your identity. So I will create a new function that I will call get identities. So this get identities is taking two parameters, so the base URL and the access token itself. And then I will simply make a get to the /beta/identities endpoint and configure manually the headers. So I will set up the authorization header to take the access token as a bearer token. I can also set the accept header or overheaders like this. Again, from this response, I will pass it as a JSON. So as of now, I have a list of objects, and I will use this table.fromList function that will allow me to transform this list of objects into a table. So table is basically like a table in Excel or something like that, the basics of objects, so you can have you can collect the data and you can do what you want based on that. But here at this stage, as a result of this table.fromList method, so you will actually have rows, but each row is an object, as I described, so or a record as they call it. So we need to expand this record. So we have columns that are usable by Power BI afterwards. So again, it's a bit like Excel. Imagine that instead of an object, you would like to have the proper columns. So in this case, I will take the ID, the name, the alias, the email address, and the attributes property from my objects. So this is why I'm using this table.expand record column here. But again, the attributes is another object, another record. So I need to expand again this column, these objects to columns. So here I will expand the attributes to just retrieve the department and location. And then I'm returning this table. So now that I have my two functions, get access token and get identities functions, I need to change my entry point, right? So I will update it So I can take my URL as a new parameter. I will first call my getAccess method to get my access token, and then based on that call the getIdentities endpoint, getIdentities function, sorry, to get the identities, and this is what I'm returning here. So I need to change my test query here, so I can actually pass the actual base URL I need to use. So I will here change the parameter, and then I'll start it. So sorry, the error is in French, but basically it says that the credentials are wrong. So of course we didn't set the credentials so far for this endpoint, so we need to configure the credentials. So for that, we will use the set credentials function here. And the set credential will allow us to go to our data source, so devdays, my connector, my file. If I will have different authentication methods, I will have a list. So here I only have one. And I can pass in my username, so I will put here a client ID. And then the secret. So again, the username and password will maps to the client ID and client secret I want to use. So I've set the credentials. I can try to run it again. You may have from time to time this error. So this error may show up and can be surprising at some point. So it means that actually I didn't choose properly a file. So make sure you are actually selecting the proper tab of your test query file here. So so I didn't actually, I was maybe using this tab instead of my file. So I will make sure that I'm selecting the proper tab and before you click on evaluate current file. So I will try again. And this time, so we can see in the result that we have columns, so ID, name, alias, email address, the department, and location into this case. And we have, as we didn't manage so far the pagination of my endpoint, I can only get 250 identities only, because this is a maximum allowed number of identity per page. So here I can get 250 identities. So far we have created, I would say, a first custom connector that is directly usable within Power BI. So we'll see how it goes. So, but before I show you, just a quick recap on what we can use. So there is some function that I already show you that are part of M, so like JSON.document to parse the response, table from list or table.expand record column that are interesting to expand and to make table usable. But there are also other functions that are provided by Microsoft. So you have the source code directly into the Microsoft documentation and maybe useful for you. So like extension.load function that allows you to load a file with functions. So it's easy if you don't want everything into a single file. And you also have table.generate by page that allows you to help you paginate things actually. Change type will allow you to type the results, so not everything is a string. You can have booleans, you can have numbers or things like that. And you have also navigation table, to navigation table, which is an interesting function if you have different object types. So here we only have identities in this case, but if you want to support identities, accounts, entitlements, you may start by a navigation table that will allow you to drill down. So once you have done your custom connector, you can install it. So it's actually copying the file, the MZ file, to a certain folder on your desktop. You have to authorize custom connector. So I will show it to you. And if you have changed these settings, this security setting, you need to restart the Power BI desktop. Also, when you are updating the connector, you need to restart the Power BI desktop. So this is why it's very interesting to be able to test your connector directly from VS Code, so you don't have to restart Power BI, because that can take some time, as I will show you. Okay, so the MEZ file, which is the custom connector, is actually present here automatically. So I will just open it and copy it to the proper folder, in the custom connector folder, for instance. And then I will start Power BI. So Power. Okay, so Power BI here is in French, but just to walk you through, so we have option and parameters here, options, and then you need to go to the security settings. So here is security, and then you have here the extensions parameter, and unfortunately you have to select the non-recommended option here to authorize third parties extension without any warnings or something. So as I said, if you are changing this parameter, you need to restart Power BI. So once you have installed or copied the file to the proper folder, you can now use it. So you will here load data and look for your connector. So my connector is called DevDays. So here we are. You will try to connect. You will be prompted with this URL parameter, as you need it to connect to ISC, right? And then we will try to, normally you're supposed to put here the username and password, so you have it in cache somewhere. You can have this preview, so again we see the ID, the name, the alias, the email address, department location, as we have seen in VS Code, and you can now load the whole data, the 250 identities that will appear in the data on the right here. Once you have done that, you can very easily, I don't know, create a graph of your data. So I will look for the split of data per department, for instance. So I will just check my departments, choose the number of ID per department, and here we are. We have this graph of identity per department. Or you can have another graph I don't know, for locations. So the number of identities per location. And now if you want to know where are my salespersons, the other graph will be automatically filtered out. And so you can see that either there is no location, or they are in Austin, or they are in Milan, and stuff like that. And it's working both ways. So who is in Brussels? So you have all these departments that are available are present in Brussels. So this is a very small custom connector. Actually, I have prepared a more complete custom connector here. And so the first thing is I'm calling on the search API to look for identities, access profiles, roles, entitlements, and audit logs and event logs. Let's open on the other side. So for instance, so you will have all the attributes you can have in search, right? And here I explained a lot of attributes. So for instance, you can very easily display the number of identities, I don't know, the identities per profile types, or by status, or based on the created timestamp, how they are created, or something like that. You can have also some KPI or dashboard about your access items. So, for instance, the number of roles, access profiles, entitlements, how many are privileged, how many are requestable, and stuff like that. And you can filter the way you want per source or something like that. I also added a query to outliers, so I can get information for outliers, from scores and things like that. So, for instance, if I want to display the score per department, I can now choose the attribute.department here and choose the score, and it will display me the outlier score aggregated per department very easily. I also have some endpoint about role mining sessions. So for instance, I wanted to display my proposition of roles depending on the number of entitlement and the number of identity accounts. So for instance, here I have a role proposition that has a lot of entitlements, like 26, and it's for 13 identities. So this might be an interesting candidate to look into, or you can, look into this one, which is also interesting because there is 35 identities that are concerned for only 3 entitlements, but this may be an interesting role to create to automate the assignment of these 3 entitlements anyway. So this is a good way to display things, and again, these are just a few examples of what we can do by leveraging ISC API. So as a conclusion, we've seen that modern BI tools like Microsoft Power BI, but I also check the feasibility with Google Looker and probably other modern BI tools can very easily integrate with ISC's API and to query the data. And these tools are really powerful for data visualization. So we already have built-in capabilities within SailPoint, but for if you are looking for something very specific to you that is present in the data, it could be a good complement as another analysis tool to be used in addition to the existing tools in ISC. So thank you for your attention, and hope you like it. So just before I forget, I will make available the source code on GitHub. I just need to rebrand a few things, and I make it available in the forum in Discuss. So I'll find a way with Jordan to share this code. It can be a starting point for you, or it can be the start of a community effort. So if there is any interest, just reach out to me, and we'll see how it goes. So thank you for your attention. Bye.